Welcome to Hello Chaos, a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic minds and lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Every week, we talk to founders and leaders from different industries at different companies, levels, stages of all shapes and sizes. We hear the real, the raw, and the unbiased stories. It's why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. We drop new episodes every Sunday so people can tune into us for tips, insights, and strategies on how to grow and scale a business or how to become better owners and leaders for our company. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP for work in progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs and leaders in affiliate cities. We've designed hyperlocal media platforms to inform, inspire, and create connections to help people succeed. Our hyperlocal media platforms are an all-in-one content hub with fresh and engaging stories, curated local calendars, local dynamic roadmaps, really just a one-stop place for people to navigate their local entrepreneurial ecosystem. We've done all the hard work for them, so you just go to one trusted place to find all the information you need. My name is Jennifer Sutton. My friends and family call me JJ. I'm the founder of Orange Whip and will be your host today. I'm excited to have Joshua Trout on as a guest on our podcast. He is a healthcare executive, leader, author, and fellow podcaster. Welcome, Joshua. Welcome to the chaos.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. It's happy to be here.
Thank you. So how about that? So you're a healthcare leader. You talk a lot about leadership, culture. How did you just get us started? Like, how did you get involved in your career journey, your leadership journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I had 13 years of working in public safety as a firefighter EMT. After doing that, I knew that there was more out there for me. It took me down the track of healthcare, but I realized very quickly that there's a lot of bad leaders out there. I felt like I had a passion and a gift for leadership, so I decided to go ahead and get my degrees. And I entered into hospital operations on the business development side. So I love people. I love networking. I love seeing others succeed. So it was really exciting to get into business development, have a very strong team that can go out there and drive business. And through a lot of success by my team, because obviously they're ones that are out there doing it, I really started to find my stride. And I realized, well, I love business development. I felt like there was more to offer. It confirmed the fact that I loved leadership. Leadership was a passion that I feel was God-given, and it was something that I wanted to make sure that I really went with. So at the age of 35, I was blessed with the opportunity to become a CEO of my first hospital. And it was a whirlwind. It was an absolute
Yeah.
and that's really where I got my feet wet in leadership. And I started to learn that there's so many different styles of leadership out there, so many different ways to connect with your employees.
Hmm.
Biggest piece of that is obviously building a strong and healthy culture. Uh,
Yeah.
that's kind of my 30-second run of
That's your thing.
yeah.
So okay, I'm going to ask you. You had bad leadership. In order to figure out what good leadership is, what were those? What were those things that you were like, this is not good. Like this is not healthy. Talk to us about that experience.
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is selfishness, the level of
Mm.
selfishness some leaders have. I think the biggest thing that I talk to other leaders, those that I mentor, those that I lead, and when I go out and do my speaking engagements, the very first thing I say to people is that, listen, I'm going to give you the secret sauce to leadership.
Hmm.
But he gets all excited, and I say, it's not about you.
Uh,
And I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned is that there was a lot of selfishness with some of my past leaders, that it was obvious that it was about meeting their agenda, their goals, making themselves look better, and not really focus on those people they were leading.
hmm.
Um, and you miss the opportunity of capturing some amazing people, some amazing feedback that if you step aside and realize it's not about you, and you pull everybody into it, you all are going to succeed.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was one of the biggest things that I noticed, that, I didn't really have a voice.
Hmm.
I didn't feel like that the care and the love was there for me as an employee, that the genuine care that a leader should have for their employees were there. And I was determined that that was something that I was going to change, even just a small little piece.
Right.
I can change that stigma and bring a new type of modern leadership.
That's been, yeah, I cannot agree with you more. One of the best companies I worked for, they always talked about the inverted triangle of like the hierarchy of should it be the CEO at the top and then work down? It really should be the leadership, the CEO and the leaders really at the bottom and serving as the foundation for the employees. So here you are, you're 35 years old, you enter in this position,
Yeah.
CEO and like what was that like? And what was some of the first kind of, I guess, changes that you made to create a healthy, like what was that process that you went through to go, I'm going to do something different?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I'm kind of laughing because what's interesting about that is I am 35. I've become a CEO. I'm only in it for 2 months, and this thing called a pandemic hit. So not only did I have to learn
In the hospital.
yes, in a hospital, with a disease that, as a nation, we had no clue how to handle. So, I was learning how to lead. I was learning how to be a young leader,
Mm.
but then I also had to learn how to navigate the stresses of a pandemic.
Yeah.
It was unique. To answer your question more directly, I think the biggest thing that I learned was building trust.
Mm.
The first thing I had to do was get in front of all these people. There's a couple different things. Number one, I'm a new CEO. Uh,
Right.
they're already going to have their walls up because they had a couple CEOs that made through that hospital before that were unsuccessful. So the lack of trust was there. Then obviously the fact that I was young,
Mm.
so and I was one of those CEOs that ran towards that, not away from it. I understood that there was going to be maybe the lack of trust, or just people.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, yeah. So where did you hear me last?
You talked about the entering in the CEO, that you were young and like the fact that you just didn't run away from it. You recognized that people might
Yeah.
have a lack of trust, and that's where we left it.
All right. So I'll start off from there. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right.
No.
Yeah. So the lack of trust that I was going to assume was going to be there, I knew I had to hit that head on.
Mm.
So something that I did was I met with not only my leaders, but I met with every employee one-to-one.
Whoa.
That was hard. It took
Yeah.
a long time, a lot of effort, a lot of long hours, coming in on midnights, coming on during the evenings. But I knew that if I was going to have them trust me from day one, for us to be able to implement what our mission was, I had to let them see me um, real and raw, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was very happy with the outcome of that, because I was able to get their buy-in very quickly, because they knew that this guy was taking the time and effort and a lot of long hours to be with us,
Right.
be serious. So that was something that I decided to do right off the get-go. On top of that, I had a couple, wanting to know what they want to know from me and learn a little bit about what they are looking in a leader. I also
Yeah.
talked about, what's your greatest fears with this pandemic? We're going to go through this together. I'm scared just like you are. And it's okay to admit that. So how do we support and love one another through this? Not only at the hospital itself, but obviously they had families and
Yeah.
unknown as well. So just really trying to get on that vulnerable level from day.
So did you notice I know that took some time to do that. How did you know that you started to build trust? What were those signals?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. The fact that they were coming to me and engaging with me more about my personal life. And what I mean
Mm.
by, when I opened up the door about my own personal struggles, my fears, even coming in as a young CEO, my fears of the pandemic, when they were able to come and feel comfortable with me, to sit there and say, hey, you know what, something resonated with me with what you talked about. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how you're handling that? To, was showing me that there was a level of trust there, that we could be vulnerable with one another, and that was really exciting to see.
Yeah. So you come in this position, you're listening, and I'm sure you got a lot of good feedback.
Oh yes, a lot.
Uh,
Pages.
pages worth. Were there things that you had to take a step back to go, okay, we've got, a lot, because we work with a lot of companies and stuff and marketing and branding, and it's like leaders take a step back to go, whoa, not everybody is on the same page, and
Yeah.
we don't really have a defined culture. What were your big ahas as you kind of looked to your pages of notes to go, what was like the first thing that you knew you needed to do?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I realized was there was poor leadership prior to me, not only one time but two times.
Mm,
CEOs that did not last very long, and the fact that there was a lack of trust related to not only the CEO but the senior leadership was evident. I knew that it was there. It was, I mean, when I looked on the paper, it was climbing out and hit me right in the face.
wow.
I knew right away that we had to have a strong message, a strong vision, but not only did we have to have the words, we had to have the actions to back that up.
That's right.
So what I said, I did.
Mm,
What I didn't know, I admitted to it and said, I don't know, but I will find out.
mm.
Uh, just full transparency was
Yeah.
the first thing that I had to do. And it was very quickly, you saw the level of trust rise because of that. Now, the other thing that was difficult was that was me, right?
Yeah.
I myself. But how do I take my other senior leaders?
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, how did you ride the ship?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I had to sit with one-on-one. I had to coach them through it. I had to make sure they understood the vision and make sure they were on page with what my vision was.
Mm,
But let them know straight up, listen, if this isn't your vision, I respect that. And I'll do everything in my power to help you find that next role for yourself, whether it's within the company or without. But I
right.
know for us to be successful as a hospital, for us to drive the business plan, to drive the mission, we have to live not only our core values, but we also got to all be completely in line as a leadership team.
Yeah.
Now, blessed to have every leader say, this is refreshing, this is what we want. Uh,
Ah,
so it was something that, that also was huge for me to really get things rolling quickly. But I also had to hold them accountable. I said, when we're going to speak things out of our mouth, I need you to back them up with actions.
yeah.
And if you don't, I will have to address that head on, because the tiniest little bump is going to go and derail us. And we just
That's
can't.
right. And so you retained all of your leadership.
100%.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bravo. So when you came out of that too, was the vision defined and core values, or did your leadership team to go, we need to take a step back to go, this is who we are
Yeah.
as an organization?
Yeah.
Or was it just, we liked it, but we weren't living it?
Yeah, absolutely. The core values were set, right? The core
Okay.
values are the company's core values, but they were not living those core values.
Yeah.
But then there was also my vision, right?
Mhm.
I'm one of those leaders that it's not about me, right? So I want everybody to have buy-in. So what I did is I said, here's my vision for the hospital. How are we collectively going to make that happen? So I allowed them to have a voice. And what was really neat about it is some of the stuff right off the get-go, I was like, that's not how I would do it.
Mm.
But I stepped, outside of myself, and I said, all right, let's entertain that. And some of the best things that we implemented at this hospital wasn't even my ideas,
Yeah.
but something that I was able to be there and allow them to have that autonomy and trust them in that moment, that what they were looking to do was for the betterment of the hospital. And it all worked out.
Oh my goodness. You should get a little pat on the back for that, because that's very, very hard. I cannot stress
But
enough how hard that is.
I was
Uh,
35, but I was growing the grays very quick.
yeah. Well, what were the top 3 lessons learned through that whole process?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, vulnerability. And that's something I believe in, is vulnerable leadership. With vulnerability, most people love that, and they react to it very positively.
Mm,
But sometimes you got some bad apples, right?
yeah.
And those people will take that vulnerability as weakness.
Mm,
Uh, so I had to learn that through vulnerable leadership, I had to also very quickly identify those people that were not on board, that weren't going to jump on the train with what we were doing, and they were looking at me in a sense of weakness, not strength, from how I led,
right.
and I had to learn how to navigate that. Right, it took a
Yeah.
couple. to realize that, all right, this person isn't looking me in the way they should look at me and respecting me for my authority. And again, when I say that, not in a God complex, but just for the role of a CEO, just in
Right.
general.
Be respectful of the role.
You got it.
Right.
Exactly. Respectful of the role. And I had to learn how to work through that and address that and identify that earlier than later. So that took some time, but I was able to do that.
Yeah. That's
Um,
like the heart was the rule of thumb of hire slow, fire fast, because you're not gonna please everybody.
no, no.
Uh,
And that's the next.
that
You learn
was-
that you can't please everybody. I'm a people pleaser. I started off in business development, so I love making people happy. I loved hearing that they had something, they had a need, or they had a problem, and I wanted to be the man to fix it. Sometimes you just can't be that man. You just
yeah.
can't be the person to fix it. And I had to learn to let that go, not take it so personally.
And then so here you are, you've kind of, I mean, you're now what, 4 years in to this, 5 years into this position?
So yeah, so actually,
Five, yeah.
I was there for actually 3 years. And then the current role that I'm in now is actually with a completely different healthcare system.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, and what was neat about this role is it was for a de novo. So when I moved down to Greenville, South Carolina, it was actually to come down here and build the physical hospital
uh,
and the entire team. So I went from fixing a hospital to
yeah.
building.
Okay, so let's talk about that
Yeah,
journey.
yeah,
Okay, you went to fix it mode.
yeah.
You're bringing these lessons learned to the build it mode. What things were your aha moments in the building mode that were different than the fixing?
The aha is it's not the same thing as fixing a hospital. So, there's a lot. I had to really learn, the construction side of things. From building the hospital from ground up. We had a design and construction team that was phenomenal, but I had to oversee those day-to-day, the processes of that
Yeah.
builder, and then I had to build a leadership team. And then from building the leadership team, I had to hire 200 employees and get things up and running. So the biggest aha moment for me was, okay, take the good and the bad from what I had to do in the other place and implement them here from day one.
Yeah.
So it really actually helped me to get ahead of the problems than coming in and trying to fix the problems down the road.
Right. So here because now you had to like hire your leadership. So you had to then figure out what are the core values of this new entity? What is the culture going to be? And what is the type of leaders that we want? Did you have kind of that in the back? Like these are the people, the
Yes.
traits. Um,
Yeah.
were they different than in the fix it, or were these like are they universal traits of like, this is what I need as a leadership team? Or did you kind of create something um, for this entity?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. I think that there's a lot of commonalities there, but I think things are a little bit different. When you're in a fixed hospital, you have to kind of handle things with kid gloves, right? Because there's
Mhm.
a lot of past wounds.
That's right.
you know,
Yeah.
where this was brand new. It was going to be fresh. It was going to be shiny. It was going to be beautiful. People coming in. So it was really exciting because we got to set the tone from day one.
Uh,
And setting the tone from day one. Okay, here is the company's vision. Here's the company's core values. Here's how I want to lead this hospital. Here's the expectation that I have for the culture. And I now had the opportunity to interview many, many people
uh,
and not tell them what my vision is, but let them tell me about themselves. What are their core values?
mm,
What was it that makes them? What excited them? What made them not so excited about going to work or the current role? And really learn more about them on a personal level, not so
mm,
much professional level, because I believe that the culture that I wanted to drive in this hospital really isn't so much about a skill set, but it's about a personality.
yeah.
Focus on hiring the right person because I could help teach the skill set.
Yeah.
So that was something that was a lot different that I really enjoyed because I was able to really build the team around the culture that I envisioned for the hospital.
Uh, yeah, we keep hearing that as a trend over the last like several years of hire for the person, hire for the attitude. Skills can be trained and taught. but you can't teach somebody to be kind.
No, not at all. We lack empathy as a society, right?
Mm,
So that is one thing that I talked about with every single person that I hired was we lack empathy as a society, and in our hospital we will not lack empathy. So I need to understand what your vision of empathy is and how are you going to drive the core value of empathy of those that you're going to lead,
mm,
because it's not just one level that has to do this. It has to be every level that's going to bring a different approach to how we're going to lead this hospital to have not only positive patient outcomes and patient experience, but ultimately employee satisfaction, keeping
right.
working for us and making them feel like a safe place to work and that they have a voice and that they actually matter.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. You talked about there's different leadership styles, and people can exhibit those styles. What do you think is your leadership style? I mean, I know you talk. Is it vulnerability,
Yeah.
or is there another, like, what other styles that are out there that people can go? How do I step into my natural strength? How would you advise that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, before you get into the different styles of leadership, I think it's important for you to identify your core values. I have a book that's coming out at the end of this year, and the book is really around transformative leadership, but really identifying what your core values are, right? There's so many people, I'm sure you've heard of really good top level employees that you promote and they fail.
Mm,
Well, because just because they're a very good employee doesn't mean they have the traits to be a leader,
yeah.
right? They're just really good at what they do. So I look at that as an example of, when you're trying to figure out what kind of leader you want to be, you need to identify what your personal core values are.
Hmm,
When you have a true understanding of what your core values are and what makes you tick, you can align those core values with those organizations that you're trying to get a job with. Once you're able to do that, you're going to realize that you have a good connection between your core values, the organization's core values, and then that's really going to start to uh, take you down a path of what kind of leader you are.
hmm,
So when I looked at my core values, my core values are vulnerability,
hmm,
authenticity, empathy, grace, humility. Those were my core values that I identified. And when I did that, I realized that being a servant leader is so
hmm.
important. That's a trendy word, right? That's a trend
Yeah.
in today's world. That's good, and that's the base of what I lead by. But then I realized my core values, I'm vulnerable in the fact of that I love to be able to connect with every employee at the level that they're at
Mm,
and my personal stories and experiences and wounds um, at the table to grow that trust, to be able to lead them correctly and make them feel like they can be comfortable being vulnerable in return.
right.
That's how I navigated that. That's how I asked my leaders to navigate their
Mm,
leadership approach as well. And I would say, don't try to mimic somebody.
yeah.
Those leaders that are out there trying, that are currently leaders, or those that are trying to become a leader,
Mm,
do yourself a favor and be genuine. Be yourself.
yeah.
Be authentic.
Yeah, I mean, we talk to a lot of founders and CEOs that, like I said, they're trying to step into this role, and the importance of personal brand. Like, you have your company brand, and like you said, you kind of, how do you step into to these roles and really help elevate these companies and the values of the company, but you got to know who you are, and what your brand stands for, and what are those kind of, like, whether it's three defining traits, or five characteristics, or whatever. But you're right, it has to be genuine, it has to be authentic, and then how do you align those personal those personal things with your company?
Yeah. And it's always been important to do that, but it's so much more important in today's world than ever.
Mm,
So many different generations, right? So
mhm,
the younger generations and the ones that are coming, they want buy-in. They want to feel like they have a voice. They want to feel like you actually care about them as an
mm,
employee, just a number. That takes time and effort. That's going to make sure you're going to have to make sure that you can align yourself with what those next generations are. I think that's where leaders fail.
mm.
That it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Work,
No.
you know, how it works. So I think that, again, to answer your question directly, I think identifying your core values is a one great way of identifying your style of leadership. The one thing that I think, no matter what person you are, what leader you are, what core value you have, you need to start to be successful as a leader with the fact of it's not about you.
Ah, yeah. That's a hard thing.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean,
That's a hard thing for people.
it is. As a human being, we're selfish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we always think about ourselves first. And you're right. Jennifer, that's one of the hardest things that people I've mentored, people that I spoke to at keynote speeches that I've done, they come
Yeah.
up, "Hey, how do you do that?" It takes time and effort.
What are there strategies to like shift the mindset, or is it really that person's got to just have it in just have it in their mindset of I've got to make the shift? How do you coach people through that?
Yeah, so both are yes. I would say yes to both of those things. I think number one, there's got to be something within you,
Hmm.
right? There's got to be a part within you that's willing to step aside, identify your weaknesses, identify some of the areas that you need to grow in, um, and make the changes.
Hmm.
On the other side of that, though, too, it's very important for you to identify some positive mentors.
Yeah.
Right? Positive mentors that you can trust, that are going to be very raw with you, that are going to help identify some of those things they see within you that are not good traits.
Right.
You have to be okay with that, and you have to be able to listen and make the changes. If I can give you a quick example of,
Please. Yes.
and it was difficult for me, before I got into leadership, I had a leader that was with us for about 3 months. And after being with her for about 3 months, she met with each one of us just to kind of connect. Here's what I've observed so far. Here's what I like about what you do. Here's what I don't like. And it was also time for us to give feedback to her.
Yeah.
She said to me, she goes, "Josh, I can tell that you want to be a leader. I can tell that you have the skill set to be a really good leader. I think you're going to be successful. However, that being said, if we don't make one change, you're never going to be successful." Like,
Whoa.
what? And she said, "You're too black and white."
Huh.
And I remember in that moment, she kept talking to me, but all I heard was, "You're too black and white." And I cut her out, and I was mad. Who are you to tell me that I'm too black and white? And as she's sitting there talking to me, it's like the whole TV thing. You're out of body, right? You see, you're talking, I'm not hearing.
It's the Snoopy, right? That yeah.
But I'm checked out because I'm offended, right? I'm butthurt. I finally, as I'm sitting there, I started to think, and I was like, oh my God, she's right. And it was so neat. About 3 months after that, I went back to her and I sat on that and I chewed on it, and I realized, and I did a deep dive. I realized that she was correct. I was way too black and white, that there is gray, specifically when you're a leader. And I made the choice to change how I viewed things. And I owe her so much of my success, because if she wasn't real with me and she was the mentor I needed, and I didn't step outside of my own selfishness and being like, "Oh, who's this person to tell me?" I
Right.
wouldn't be right now. So I highly recommend people getting mentors that you can trust and listen.
Yeah. And I also say too, just to add on, I agree just 1,000%. And I think as we, for the listeners out there, whether, if you've got somebody that's managing you, or if you're managing somebody, sometimes it's hard to deliver the, that right, as a manager, as a coach, as a leader within an organization, because you don't want to hurt somebody, right? And we never like delivering um constructive news, nor do we like to hear it. Obviously, like your case, it was like
Yep.
shutting you down. But I've read somewhere, I have no idea where I read this, but it kind of was like a little aha moment. And I've tried to tell my managers and leaders here of, we're coaches, we're not managers. We're not, it's not hierarchy on a chart, right? Where we all are helping somebody through to make them better at whatever role they are, or to realize their dream, their personal brand. And if and that's how we have to view it. We're just coaching. And if somebody doesn't want to listen to it, then it's not the coach's fault. It's not the boss's fault, or the manager's fault that they're, that you're not hitting your goals. It's because you weren't ready to hear the information.
Right.
You're not ready. You're not ready to realize your next dream. And I think that's, whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end, I think if it's feedback, it's inputs, it is, that back and forth of, I'm here to make you successful. I want you to succeed. I'm trying to coach you through it, but you've got to be ready to hear it and go, and like you said, not to, turn the TV off, right? Or
Yeah.
got to have your receptors on to be willing to listen to it, because they're just trying to help you.
Yeah.
They're just trying to make your dreams come true, right?
Absolutely. I would say, if I can add to that, if you have people that are mentors, right? We'll call them mentors in your
Yeah,
life, that aren't giving you constructive feedback, they're not a mentor,
that's right.
because you're not perfect.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
flaws, whether
that's
you
right.
like flaws. And a true mentor is going to truly mentor you and give you that both positive and negative feedback. And you need to be okay with that.
That's right. We call them, like, you need to have cheerleaders in your life. And you need to recognize those who are your cheerleaders, because you do need to have
Oh, yeah.
people cheering you on and giving you that. But to your point, you need to have a true mentor, a coach, that somebody is helping you work through those issues, the weaknesses, whether it is a attitude, right? Like soft skills, or if it's truly like hard skills of, we are trying to help you better in your performance. But you need both of those people in your life.
You, you,
Uh,
you do. And, one thing that is I've learned about leadership is it's lonely at the top.
oh my goodness.
You
So
know, it,
lonely.
you strive to pour yourself into your employees all day, every day.
Hmm.
Also, then getting it from the uppers, right? Even the people that are above you, whether that's board of directors, stakeholders, whatever,
Right.
that are pushing you to drive a business plan for success. And you sit there and you're, okay, this side I'm giving all of me, this side's telling me to do, and then you go home and you go, well, what about me?
Right.
What about my struggles? So that's where I've identified that mentors and even those cheerleaders,
Mm.
that's where you really need to fall back on them, because let them love into you, right? Pour love into you. And sometimes that is in not always warm and fuzzy, but that's
That's
okay.
that's okay. It is. So I was going to ask you that too, of like, man, you were in a fix it mode. Now you're in a stress build it mode. What do you do to just relieve the stress? Or, do you have any kind of tricks or strategies that you have said, look, I've got to do this. This is,
Yeah,
otherwise I'll go mad.
that's a great.
Um,
No, if I, and again, this is going to be just a vulnerable comment is, mental health is
oh,
tough, right? Mental health for everybody, and as a man, that's tough. And us guys, we're not so warm and fuzzy, just to kind of let and I have learned that I had to do that. I had to find those people, and I just had to be raw and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling. Uh,
mhm.
Here's where I'm at. Here's some stress that I'm doing. I have no problem, seeing counselors every once in a while. I think everybody should have a counselor. People that look at that as a negative thing, wrong,
That's
right?
right.
Somebody to go talk to and let some of that stress off. Some other things that I personally do now are a little bit more of a holistic approach to my health. So I do cold plunge, I do
Mhm.
cryotherapy, I do infrared sauna. I have learned that those things, just taking 35 minutes out of my day to do one of those and just close my eyes and just let it
Mm.
work through my body and de-stress, has been huge for me. It's been a game changer.
Yeah.
you know that's right now where I'm at. I can tell you that I'm not very good at it, and I'm still
I
like,
think I think we all, I've started, like, that's one of my those are one of my challenges for me. I
Yeah.
mean, like I'm doing better, but I started doing the lymphatic exercises, the somatic. I do sound baths with a group of female leaders, and just to let the relief. But as my doctor would tell you, he's like, you just walk outside. You need 30 minutes of vitamin D. Like, go just sit, go take a walk. You need to walk.
Agree.
And I'm like, I
Yeah.
know. He's like, it's 15 minutes, Jennifer, just do it. I'm like, I know, I'm terrible. I'm terrible at it.
And as leaders
Uh,
like that, I think, Jennifer, that's just, it's in our DNA,
I know.
but we can't allow that to be an excuse.
That's right. I've been telling myself that over the last year, and I mean, I can completely tell a difference in my physical health, even though from a weight management, can't see it yet is the big emphasis.
Yeah.
I'm on the path, but mentally it has been, I've noticed like my mind is sharper. I've got energy that I didn't have. I can tap into to that. And then I've told this story too of just kind of like, I don't know if you have anything like this, but I have before I go to sleep at night, I do a journal 3 things in a little notebook, and I call it the daily 3. I write down what was a moment of joy, um, just kinda a brief statement of like, and some days it's hard
Yeah.
to read, like, bad days occur, but I try to really think they're like there's always, even if it's small, there's always a moment of joy. Um, I have found I've and then the second is like what was the what has caused like the most anxiety, whether it's something I have to do the next day or something that has occurred, like I handled something, maybe a conversation with an employee, or I didn't handle myself in a presentation the way, just a moment, what was an anxious moment. And it's just that when I write it down, I get it out of my head and then I don't reflect on it anymore. And then the third is what am I most looking forward to tomorrow?
Mhm.
And it's just real simple. I know a lot of people like journal, journal, journal. I'm like, I don't have time for that, but I have do these 3 things every night, and it has caught my I sleep better. Um, and then it's just when I go back and reflect on that, the things that used to cause me anxiety, I'm like, that's silly. Because I'm used to getting the uncomfortable, just like almost like a therapist, right? You just get it out of your system,
Yeah.
and then you can reflect on it. But those are like that. Those were my little tips of just helping me with my mental energy.
Yeah. That's
Um,
still those.
yeah, that's right. Now, so you have a book coming out later this year. What is the book on?
Yeah, so pretty much everything we talked about. So it's called Transformative Leadership, and it's about identifying your personal core values.
Ah,
Uh, it talks a little bit about servant leadership, but also talks about vulnerable leadership. So leading through vulnerability, and how putting those all together can help build a strong and a healthy leadership approach, and then obviously can be pushed through that organization to build
yeah.
a strong and healthy culture. I talk about the important things of leadership, right? I think that in the book, we focus on outcomes, and outcomes are so important, whether it's financial, whether it's satisfaction from your customer, your employees, your patients, whatever that may be. But I truly, truly believe, and you mentioned this earlier about the upside down triangle.
Right.
I feel like if you have a strong and healthy culture, and you keep silos away from your organization, that is actually will generate positive outcomes, positive experience, less turnover, right? Your higher retention. That is where I believe all those things come from. And a lot of organizations do it the opposite way, and they don't understand why it doesn't work.
Right.
You're not going to have positive outcomes and have happy people if there's not a healthy culture, if you're
Right.
not leading in a way that they deserve to be led. So that's really what the book all encompasses.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
Um,
And you're
what what is the what would our listeners, I think, what would they find surprising about you, or something that's interesting that is not on your resume, that's not on LinkedIn? What do you think our listeners would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh boy, that's a deep question. You know, I am somebody that's very much into his faith. That's one thing. From a hobby perspective, I love the deep sea fish and
Ah,
on the surf, on the shore rather. And I have an obsession with aviation. I love aviation. I have plans on getting my
get
pilot's.
your license,
Yeah,
pilot's license. Oh,
yeah. So those are little things that I like. And I'm a Sinatra fan. I love that's one way that I can relax is some jazz, some Sinatra, a cigar, bourbon, ready to
you're ready to go. Put you on a beach somewhere with your.
go. Don't tease me.
That's right. So you'll be set for life.
It's amen.
Um, Well, we are completely out of time, and I'm amazed how fast these things go. Before we go, though, how do you want people to connect with you? Find information about the book that's coming out? Uh, yeah. How, how,
Absolutely.
how, how do we share you
Yeah.
with everyone?
Well, thank you. So I do a lot on LinkedIn. So you can definitely check out my LinkedIn page. I have one that's a personal page. I have one that is my author speaker page.
Mm.
Then also I have a business that kind of encompasses my speaking and all that. It's called Viewpoint Leadership LLC.
Mm.
So there's also a page for that. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook for all three things. And then obviously our website. So our website is theviewpointco.com. So theviewpointcompany.com.
Okay.
I know you're going to post some things down below,
Yeah.
too, but you can reach out to me in any one of those. I am responsive. I love to talk to people. I love to hear feedback. Yeah, that's the best way to get hold of me.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, everybody, check it out. We will share links, and definitely keep following Joshua, because he's got some good stuff, especially for all of us out there that are trying to run businesses, step into these leadership roles. It's one of the hardest aspects of scaling and growing a business and a team, and we need that advice and those strategies. So thank you for hanging out with us today, Joshua. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. This has been blessed.
All right. And for our listeners out there, we will be publishing this podcast this coming Sunday. Will be available on your favorite podcast platform. So subscribe to Hello Chaos, like, comment, and share this great content, and help us grow a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP, for work in progress. We are a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs and leaders in affiliate cities. We are 100% free. So just come and check us out. We are currently in 3 areas of South Carolina, the upstate, Midlands, and Low Country, with goals to expand to be in 30 markets in 5 years. So come check us out. We'd love to also have you as a guest on our podcast. If you're a founder out there, just send us an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is where aha meets oh shit. I'm your host, Jennifer Sutton, aka JJ, and we will see you again next week.